Welcome to another episode of Band Director Bootcamp, the podcast with productivity and wellness tips for busy band directors. I'm your host, Lesley Moffat, and I'm really grateful to be sharing this platform with you. As busy band directors, we know you don't have time to watch lengthy professional development webinars, so we share 20-minute tidbits with takeaways you can use to support you with professional longevity and a healthier life. And today I have a guest with me. She's from the choir realm, people, but stay tuned. It's going to be okay. She's seen the light and she's coming to Band Director Bootcamp here. Lynn Brinckmeyer, I got to witness her as a conductor of an junior all-state choir when one of my children was a member of that. So that was my introduction to her, and I was in awe of the rehearsal process and the final product. And then my parents happened to work in music for the state and national levels and worked closely with Lynn for many years. So my dad insisted I had to call her, and I was so excited. She said, yes, she'd come here because she brings a lot of experience as a music educator, as an advocate, as an author, and all kinds of stuff. And she's going to talk to us today about some things that she has put in one of her books about recruitment and retention and all those things that are such an important part of our music programs that can make or break us. She's going to give us some pointers and ideas that we can do to make sure our programs are what we want them to be. So, Lynn, thanks for showing up today.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. I'm so excited to be part of this conversation. And by the way, I played clarinet and oboe in elementary and middle school and high school, and then just a little bit in college. But when I got to the point I needed to decide, it was either one path or the other. I loved the band area, yet my choir it won out. So, but my heart still is, I finally gave my clarinet to Eastern Washington University so that they could have it for their instruments to help it. People were taking methods. So I released it so someone else could continue playing it.
Well, I feel better now having someone who's played a band instrument on here. Okay. Well, I know. Yeah, there we go. Well, I know you've done a lot of things. You've served on the state levels, national levels for like 17 years, nearly 2 decades, as a leader, as someone who was out observing and doing things that were really supportive. You've taught at Texas State, obviously conducted lots of all-state groups and the like. And then you've written several different books, Wander the World with Warm-Ups and Wander the U.S. with Warm-Ups. And the one we're going to dig into a little bit today is Advocate for Music, which is going to offer over 90 strategies to advocate for music programs. And so we're not going to have time for all 90 today, but we're going to talk about some of those so that people out there who are like, hey, I want to have a strong program and I need some pointers, we're going to give them some pointers today, and then we can dig in. So what I have learned is that people don't just randomly write books without a reason. So tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to writing these kinds of books, and why specifically the advocacy one.
Well, I think that, you talked about my leadership, both at the state and the division level and then the national level. When I was serving as a national president and as a division leader, I had the opportunity to go testify in Washington, D.C., and talk to different legislatures during that time for a span of probably about 10 to 12 years. And talking on Capitol Hill was terrifying, but it also was so important. And I realized just as soon as I got there and started talking about students, I completely lost all anxiety because, they're people. And so that's what got me involved because I wanted to make sure we have music education all across the country. And then after I stepped down from some of that national leadership, I still was doing clinics. I still do clinics across the country for advocating for music. And I had a gentleman from Oxford University Press, and he said, you need to put this in a book. He said, write a proposal. And I'm, okay. And so it was about a 1.5 year process to get the book written and share that. But the more I got into it, the more I wanted it to be like a handbook for teachers. Pardon me, not another resource that was going to be for a small minority of research individuals at the university level. Do I hope that they might use it? Absolutely. But my purpose was to give students, or parents, teachers, principals, etc., a to-do list. If you don't know how to advocate, here's some ideas, and it can start in your classroom. It doesn't have to be going to talk to legislators in D.C. You can do that. Even simple things like having students fill out, I love music because, something like that. And then you have a rolling PowerPoint, and the parents are coming into the concert and they're seeing these answers, or having a word cloud that the students describe a particular piece. It's their words, and just putting a word cloud up there. That, I mean, this can be at all different levels. It doesn't have to be elementary or middle school, high school, can be all of those. And so I started just making lists of those types of things, that what could you do, because that's advocacy. Mm-hmm. And advocacy is education. It's educating the general public, in my perspective, and sometimes our administrators, that about the power and the beauty, and teaching students how to learn how to learn through the medium of music, whether they go on for a professional career or not. That's not our goal necessarily. Typically, it's how do we share this medium of music? I mean, I'm not teaching any band director something about all the leadership skills and all to be able to listen. I mean, all those different kinds of things that you do so beautifully are unaware. So, I mean, our public is sometimes unaware of those things they're all going on, and helping the students to be our best advocates.
Yeah. I often used to think that advocacy meant you were going out and being super like in somebody's face about it.
Power city and go to the state capitol. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's piece of it. But you're right. Every day in that classroom, what you're doing with your students, creating a place where they, like you said, students are the biggest recruiters for us, right? If they're having a positive, good experience and are learning and feeling safe and all of those things, they want their friends to come and do that too. So that's a piece of it. I know it's also easy to think, hey, recruitment's in the spring, right? But it's not. Recruitment is an everyday thing. It's even when you run into the family at the grocery store, at that, just the conversations you have and the tone that you set. I love that you started writing those things down. We do, I call it in their own words at our concerts. And I have the same thing. I give them a couple of prompts. So we do some videos, short videos, like literally 10 to 15-second videos of the kids speaking. And then sometimes it's the written words and stuff. And it is amazing how parents respond to that, because we do our fundraiser right after they see all that, right? So
good timing.
Because everybody makes decisions based on feelings. And if people feel like they feel good in your presence, they feel good about what they're doing. If parents see their children doing something that they love, that they're hanging out with the kind of kids they want them hanging out with, they're doing the things they want them to do, they become your advocates also. But you have to educate them. So you were really specific. You gave us several really good concrete ideas of things we can do now, or as we come in this time of year, that will pay dividends as we get to the later in the year. So that's sort of a retention kind of thing through engagement of your students and your parents and your communities. Oh, and you probably have done stuff like this too, is admin. Admin often wants the best and wants to do, but they don't often know how to do that. So bringing them in your classroom to do little things, I think, are often pretty good too. Like, come and play the cowbell on our concert or something like this. Get them in the classroom in the rehearsal process. They get amazed at what happens, and they don't always see it when they're in there just to do an evaluation.
Well, this reminded me of I borrowed this from a teacher, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the teacher right now, but it's showing like about a 30-second snippet of the first rehearsal on a particular piece, maybe a rehearsal 2 weeks later, just a little, so that the parents and the administrators or whoever's in the audience can see, oh, look at the progression. This is, these students are learning a new language when they're coming in and learning music, reading things, so they could see, oh my gosh, because so many times people come to a concert and say, oh, you guys are so talented, it's so beautiful. And, we didn't come out of the womb that way. It was work, absolutely. So that for them to see the process, or even have them come to an informant, and where you really have a concert, you have an informant to let them see. I love that idea. Another thing that popped into mind was having the really young ones, like 5th or 6th graders, are just thinking about going into band, and come to a rehearsal for middle school or high school. And it's almost like a petting zoo. They sit down with their instrument by the older students. And if you can find an arrangement where they could do the pedal tones along with them. And the reason I got that idea, just let me tell you, I happened to be in Brazil. We were led a delegation there. We shared information and went to a school, and the orchestra played, and there was a consort of recorders that played for us. There were 8 students. One little boy was holding his recorder at the end, and they played Ode to Joy. Do, 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 do. And he played do, 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 do. He did that for every little phrase. He played the last two notes. That's all he played. But he got to be in that concert for people in the United States that came to hear that concert. I thought that teacher was brilliant to allow those children to play at whatever level they could. And I love that idea, and I've retained that ever since. I've always thought about that. What a brilliant teacher he was.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah. Nice. So we've talked about retaining, and I know that in advocacy, there's also the recruitment piece too. Do you have some pointers you want to share with us? Some practical strategies for attracting new students too? Is that something you've tapped into much?
Well, I think the main thing is visibility. If they're not going to come be in a program if they don't know about it, or just having somebody tell them. Obviously, now if you've got a friend, word of mouth, that's absolutely wonderful. If I'm in choir or band or orchestra or whatever, or jazz, and I want you to come with me next time. And getting out there, and I will say that as a seventh grader, I saw a university band come play for us, and I'm going to be on that stage. I was sitting there looking at that. I am going to be on that stage. That was something that was so at least in the choral world, when I transferred over at Texas State with the children's chorus, we would have them stand on stage and sing with university singers, or we'd have the high school students come in and stand up on the risers with the college students and feel what it feels like to be in a group that's older, whatever level is older. So I think that exposure like that, and I realize, especially in the fall, band directors, if you have marching band, you are so strapped for time, and I absolutely get that. I do think the more exposure, the better, though. They can see, I want to do that, and I want to play like that person does. Someday I'm going to do that.
I know a lot of directors, and I used to do this when I was at the high school, on a pep band event at a basketball game. You send the middle school eighth graders, one or two songs, and then they become the guests, and they come, you do a little rehearsal in the band room first, then a pizza party with the high school kids. And then you go up there and a halftime features them. And, as it's not that it's that amazing of a musical performance kind of thing that you can do in that, but it is for those kids. It's something that's bigger than me. And it feels like those high schoolers are just amazing. Yeah. Such rock stars.
You talked about the feelings earlier, and people do things. Our thoughts cause our feelings, and our feelings cause 100%. Our actions. Mm-hmm. And so that to feel like, oh my gosh, to be that, and then the parents too. So absolutely, they have those emotional experiences. Of course, they want to recreate that and do it again. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. This is so interesting to talk about, and I want to ask you a few more questions. But before we do, I just want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, the Empowered Music Educator Academy, where they help busy band directors create successful programs, build supportive communities, and feel freaking amazing by providing productivity and wellness tips to support professional longevity and a healthy life.
You're listening to the Band Director Boot Camp podcast, brought to you by the Empowered Music Educator Academy. At the Academy, we're dedicated to supporting busy band directors like you with practical productivity and wellness strategies. Whether it's through our books, coaching sessions, or GPTs designed specifically for band directors, we've got everything you need to lead a successful music program without burning out. Let us help you achieve excellence in your work without working around the clock.
All right. I'm going to transition a little because we chatted before we started the interview. So back here with Lynn after that little commercial break. One of the things that you are doing in your retirement, which is just working differently, they call it retirement, but I don't
I
get
call
that.
it releasing Texas State. I didn't know.
All right. But you've gone into something very similar to what I do. I started several years ago, I guess, band director coaching or whatever it would be, and life coaching that you're doing and leadership. Talk to us about what you do and why that's such an important piece of your role now.
When being involved at the university, especially at Texas State, I was the associate dean and then also choir director. And I mentored faculty constantly. Well, my whole life I've been mentoring students, and I didn't want that to stop. I love seeing students and faculty and peers, asking them questions so they can decide themselves what is they're the highest authority on their life. What is it that's really, what resonates with you? And when during COVID, I knew at that time that I probably wasn't going to stay at Texas State my whole life, that there might be a transition. And so I decided I was home every evening except Monday nights. I had rehearsal, but online. But after that, so I got certified during that time with Brave Thinking Institute. And I'm a Life Mastery certified coach. So that has been really, since my mom, I've had the last year I've lived here in Lubbock, I moved away from Texas State, and I've now have my coaching either, music is about 50% and then coaching is about 50%. So I still get to help people. I mean, that's the whole thing. The reason I went into being a teacher, I wanted to help people learn how to love music the way I did. And then I decided to go into higher ed because I knew I could help the people that were in my class, but I wanted to help more people. So if I train teachers, then I can help even more people. And it's just sort of, that ripple effect just gotten bigger and bigger. And I thought, okay, I can still help people and be able to deal with the social, emotional, physical, mental, everything instead of only and I shouldn't say that we only did music, because how much of this, a little bit of a conducting pattern truly was what we did when we were we're therapists. How many boxes of Kleenex do you go to times? Even when you're in your own ensemble right before rehearsal or something. So we're all therapists in some ways.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. I think you and I have had some pretty unique experiences when it comes to nice long careers doing this, right? My dad taught for 100 million years. My mom was a teacher. My grandma was a music teacher. And there's something that comes with that. It's just that long-term commitment, watching generations literally come through and do that. And it sounds like you're like me. You want to have give other people the tools that they need to do this in a sustainable way, because I learned how to do it in a non-sustainable way, and that damn near killed me. And so, there's a lot of teachers right now, music teachers, who it's too much and it's too hard alone. And so being another resource out there, someone who can help them through with your experience, is awesome. We're going to include stuff in our show notes, by the way, about that'll connect you to Lynn if you're interested in learning more about that or about her book. So don't panic, you listeners. We got you covered here.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So we've got just a minute or two here, because I try to keep these nice and short, but I would like you to, at the end here, maybe tell us a little bit about, in the long term, or maybe a key couple takeaways of what music teachers can do to advocate and support at their school or district level to really ensure that their programs thrive as much as possible in this day and age.
I think that that idea of educating and remembering, when we have a student in front of us, we don't just tell them something one time and, okay, we educated them. I mean, we know it takes repetition, and anyone who's ever taught a recorder in fourth grade or somewhere around that, you realize that the first day, it doesn't really sound like you're hoping it changes down the road. And there's lots of experimenting. And so where I'm going with this story is that when we advocate for music, regardless of what strategy you use, whether you're going and playing something at a school board meeting and thanking them and handing them a flyer. I mean, there's so many beautiful advocacy materials on the WMEA website, on the Texas State website, it's CBDNA. I mean, you all of them have wonderful strategies and also tools. Get those tools and you can hand them out, but thank them. The main thing is go when things are good. Thank you for supporting music education. Thank you. And you educate them over and over. It's repetition with our community, with our administrators, and reminding them and thanking them. Look at what these kids, because these students are learning how to be contributing adults into society when they graduate. So
I'm going to add one thing to that because I think it's important. It's also our students, getting them to think about how much they love band. And I do this. Maybe it's tacky. I shouldn't probably admit. I have a Moffat-gram at the end of every class. It's an exit ticket. It's a Google form, and every day the kids click it, and I have what they did in class, how they participated, a self-evaluation, and then I often ask other questions. And like last Friday, I said, "What is something you can do now that you didn't think you'd be able to do when you started playing?" Then the next week it was, "What's something you love about being in band?" I don't say, "Do you like it?" It's like, what is something you love? Getting them to articulate it, having a kid have to type in, even if it's hanging out with my friends and making music together, whatever it is. I actively get them to articulate it at least once a week in some way, something they're doing well or growth. And it's through this Moffat-gram where they're already doing it anyway. Then if I need something, I can go pull it out later, but it's mostly to get the kids thinking about it.
Absolutely.
So,
I did something very similar to that with my children's course at Texas State, and one little young man said, I said, what do you love about choir? And he said, the snacks. And I thought, you know what? You got your foot in the door. And after a while, because I always did world music drumming, and at the end of every rehearsal, he was loving the drumming by the time we got there. And so he actually did like something more than just the snacks, and he learned how to do solfege too. So you never know. You plant those seeds.
That's funny. We do band buddies on Wednesday nights or Wednesday after school. It's an open practice for an hour. And I say to the parents, your kids love band buddies, but they love the snacks more. So the parents just keep piling them in. But again, it's a safe, great place.
Get in the door. Absolutely. I'll take it.
They're like, what are the snacks? I'll see if I'm going to stay today. So, wow. Well, this was a treasure trove of stuff we just packed into this one episode. And again, as I said before, we're going to put links to Lynn's website and other stuff so you can check out her books. She's also was very clear about going to the state and national sites for music stuff, because you don't have to recreate the wheel, people. There's stuff there you can literally copy and print or paste it in your program to help educate people so they advocate for your program, your students' program. I can put
those links in there in the notes for you. I'll have some of those too as well.
See, aren't you all glad you tuned in for today's episode? Look at this, all this cool stuff you're getting today. So Lynn, thanks for coming today and for sharing with us. I really appreciate it.
I'm delighted. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Yeah. And thank you to all you listeners out there who are making a difference in kids' lives through the magic of music education every single day. The work you do matters, and so do you. Join us next time on Band Director Bootcamp for another episode of productivity and wellness tips for busy band directors to make your life a little easier.